Hey everybody, Bryan here again for another walk and talk on this beautiful Wednesday. Kind of cloudy, not very hot right now. It's pretty nice, got a little breeze going. Today I'm at Johnny Appleseed Park, which is located on the northern end of Fort Wayne. Basically the northern edge of the downtown area. This is more or less a hub for different areas. This is also an RV park. Once I kind of get myself acclimated to my walking here, I'll turn it to the left there. There's an RV place that visitors can stop at and set up camp, stay a while, have some fun. The rest of this is just kind of just a little pocket of land in our city. The direction I'm walking is going to be towards Coliseum Boulevard, which is the main thoroughfare through the city. It's a loud mess. It's a lot of traffic. So we're going to have to deal with a little bit of that to get to our goal. I'm going to be heading towards a college. Purdue Fort Wayne University is over there. This trail that I'm going to be walking on heads in that direction. Actually has a few different ways to go. I'm going to go towards the school. It's a little more quiet over there. There's a legitimate path that way too. With some of those like workout equipment stations set up along the trail. It's very nice. But I decided to start here because I don't come here very often. Sometimes my wife and I start here and we'll walk towards there's a coffee shop and a few little places to get a bite to eat, and a vintage store, record store, places like that. I won't be going that direction. I'm going to go a different way. Something caught my eye over here. I'm going to head in that direction. Our city is cut off, or not cut off, cut into parts by 3 different rivers. So the rivers are a big part of our experience here in this town. We used to have a festival every year around July. Week-long festival. It was always a big deal to the residents, called the Three Rivers Festival. Again, noting the rivers and their importance to our city. Because of poor management and financial issues, they had to scrap it. So after decades of this morale building, community support festival experience, they had to get rid of it. Doesn't say much about our dedication, so kind of ticks me off, but so it goes. I'm not sure I'll have the right terminology for this, but I believe this is like a hydroelectric dam. It's a beautiful building. We'll be walking by a little bit of it here in a bit, but I don't think I've ever been down this part. There's a guy fishing over there. There's stuff down here, some gloves, a bunch of junk. So today, what I want to talk about as it pertains to schools is something called patience. You may have heard of it. I was inspired by this morning, actually, right before I came here. Went to get my blood drawn, do some lab work. And I went to a place I'd never been before. I have kind of a unique situation where when I have my blood drawn, I have to be able to lie down. If I do it sitting up, I will faint, get ill, have a whole episode. So that's tough on me. So I have to have a place I can go that can accommodate me lying down, which this place did. And I'll be going there in the future too. Just a lot easier for me. It's a lot closer. But anyways, I was sitting there, excuse me, laughing and coughing at the same time. I was sitting in there in the waiting room, and I noticed that there's all these people coming in, and they couldn't possibly have appointments, not in the least, because mine was set up for 9:30. I got there at 9:10. I checked in at the little kiosk, sat down. But the entire place was just filled. And if you look at their appointment scheduler, it goes in 15-minute increments. So it's not like, okay, we have a 9:30, a 9:35, a 9:40. No. It's like big chunks of time, but all these people are coming in. They can't possibly have these appointments ready to go. Well, come to find out, they're also a walk-in clinic too. So I accepted my fate. I'd be sitting there for a while, and I sat. And in those situations, I normally have a book with me. I'm not a big phone guy, despite what I'm holding in my hands right now. I don't like losing myself in the phone. It's just not my thing. I like a good book. Give me a good classic bit of literature, and I'm happy. I didn't bring a book. I was feeling pretty confident I could get in there and out quite quickly. Well, that wasn't the case. I had to wait quite a while to be seen. And some of the folks that got there after me, they got in to be taken care of before me, but it doesn't do me any good to complain. So I sat down, and before long, these two people showed up, an older fellow and his wife. And I didn't think much of it until he started talking to me. He explained how he was at this location the day prior, yesterday, and he waited an hour and a half to be helped. And he was never helped. He just got up and left. And he was going through his old spiel about how doctors don't care about their patients, and they're taking advantage of the patient's time, and why doesn't this location have a board that shows everyone who's in order, the queue of who's being waited? He went on this tirade, and it was profanity filled too, and it was loud enough to get other people's attention. So I'm thinking, why is it I am accepting the troubles of waiting for medical care or service? I've accepted this. I didn't even bother bringing my book. But this guy who just got there is already complaining. It boggled my mind. Now, I'm going to continue this story, but I want to forewarn you. This is most certainly Coliseum Boulevard right here. It's going to be loud. But I got to cross this bridge to get where I'm going, so please forgive the noise. And I promise I will get back into the main part of the story. I need to build it up a little bit. Oh, by the way, as I mentioned in other videos, I like to go magnet fishing. And I've never done it in this river right here. But there was one day when down there along the railing, someone had gotten their magnet stuck to like a little brace down there, and they abandoned it because it's hard to get off. And I came so close to coming back another day to try to get that thing off, because it was a better magnet than what I had, a lot stronger. It's like, oh, I want that, but I never did. So yeah, to our left here, this is Purdue Fort Wayne. PFW used to be IPFW, used to be a kind of a joint venture between Indiana University and Purdue University here in Fort Wayne. Indiana pulled out, they did their own thing. Purdue stayed, so it's PFW, the Mastodons. Apparently, in days long ago, we had mastodons in this area. I'll just accept that as being true. Okay, so back to the waiting room and patients. This guy's going off on a tirade about how he has to wait. One of the helpers comes over, and he's checking on everybody because, he's trying to make sure that everyone's checked in and everyone's in the queue properly and no one's waiting unnecessarily. And this guy I'm sitting next to, he starts to yell at the attendant. Again, saying everything he told me and really getting his feelings out there. And, bless the guy for trying to listen to him, but he wised up and just walked away, which I think was the best course of action for him in that moment. So I finally got in there, got my blood drawn. They're very nice to accommodate me, needing to lie down. And I left, and that was it. As I was walking back in my car, I was thinking about patience. Because what I told the person who had drawn my blood, because I need to keep my mind off of what's happening, I told him, man, there's people out there in the waiting room who are just angry, just bitter. And I asked him, how do you do it? How do you withstand the stress of having to deal with these people whose time is so precious that they're going to make you feel like you're doing something wrong? He goes, you know what? We just work through it. We try to put that behind us, and we just go through it. And I kid you not, I've been at other locations like that. These people are running around. They are trying their best to get this stuff done for us. And I appreciated what they did. And I said, look, I appreciate you accommodating me. And I admire your patience here, because these people they're vicious. And they're very important to themselves. And, that the whole thing was trying to give a little bit of appreciation. The person who helped me, gave me a nice thumbs up and a thanks and all that. And quickly got back to work. So I thought about patience as a virtue, patience as something that I don't think everybody has. I think this is something you need to realize for yourself, put to good use in the different avenues of your life. If you notice, I'm under the bridge right now, under Coliseum. You might hear the noise above. Kind of cool under here. And I thought about it in terms of being in school, being the adult in the room, or one of the adults in the room. Are we doing enough to make sure we are not losing our heads, that we're maintaining control, we're not getting hot, and we're not saying things that we might regret? And this is something I've had to work on, because at my heart I'm a very passionate person, very opinionated, very at times very brusque and brash. And that's something I had to really learn to moderate for myself when I started working with children, because there's two things going on in the very least that I need to keep in mind. One, I got to remember these kids are not developed. Girls, 22. That's when their brain is fully developed. Boys, 25. So in a grade level of, let's say, third graders, the girls are a little closer to being mentally, intellectually developed than the boys are. Boys take a little more time. And it's the boys who are most likely going to get under my skin. Why that is, I don't know. It could be a variety of reasons. It could just be their nature. They're at a primal level. They're at that hunting sort of precipice. They're the hunters, and the girls are going to be the gatherers. They're going to be the presumed interspecies social ones, where they're worrying too much about what each other are doing, not what they're doing on their own. The boys seem to be a little more wild and ready to put themselves out there, and I think that might that might go against my personal taste, even though I'm a guy myself, and I can sympathize to a degree, and I can understand. But as a professional in a field such as education, it presents a unique challenge for me. So I've got to find ways to be patient, think first, and not just say things that are basically the result of me in an emotional state. So again, the kids are underdeveloped. I have to remember that. Another thing is, they may not really know what they're doing. I'm going to pause here. This is actually a very interesting looking bridge here. This goes over the river to the other side of the area. I don't believe that is necessarily part of the college's land. If I follow that far enough, this actually connects to where I was when I was walking at Shove Park. I kept walking, had to turn around. If I go far enough, I end up over here. So I'm basically at the end point of that old walk had I continued. But I didn't because, there's no loop here. And that would have been a very long walk. But yeah, it's a beautiful bridge. This path here goes just throughout the university. I love these workout equipment stations. It's great. Some of them are a lot of fun. I don't think I'll be doing them today because I got to keep a hand free. But I might stop to check one out, like this one over here. It's one of my favorites. Not these parallel bars. I don't care about that. This thing here. It's supposed to work your abs. Because you get on there and you kind of swing side to side. Keep yourself upward. That's fun. My wife and I do this one. This one over here. I like it quite a bit. Man, that bird's going nuts. I'm sure you hear that. So yes, in addition to being underdeveloped, the kids also just may not understand what they're doing. From a knowledge standpoint, awareness, and the surroundings of being at the age of reason, they may not understand what they're doing. So you have to treat them as if they're, well, perhaps a bit ignorant to what's going on. And how do you deal with ignorance? You teach. You have those moments where you're teaching. Can I really fault someone, however, for being mad? Like if a teacher sees something going on that is just completely absurd. No, I can't. I can't fault them for their feelings. That's something that's out of my reach. But how they react, that is something I can be unnerved by. And this is where we get into heavily punitive things, such as the problems of corporal punishment, where we're smacking, hitting, spanking, causing some sort of physical pain as a result of doing something wrong. And you know what? I mean, that's a debate that will go on as long as there are parents and their children. And we're talking about the home life here, but what a parent does with their kid at home, the vast majority of the time, that's out of our reach. What happens behind closed doors, that's very hard to get a full picture of. But in school, we did the right thing. And when I grew up, every elementary school I was at featured something very familiar in the principal's office. Hanging on the wall in clear view from the hallway was the paddle. Big paddle, holes drilled in it. It was there as a symbol, as a reminder that if you screw up enough, you're going to meet this very closely. Thankfully, I never had to experience that, but I had friends who did. The the crying, the yelling could be heard out in the hallway. That's a dark part of education history, and I'm glad we've moved on from that, because we realized that is physical abuse. There's nothing to be gained from that. That is not a teaching moment. That is just pure rage manifesting in the beating of a child. Never agreed with it, and I still don't. So if there are still schools out there that employ that sort of measure, I would like to know where these places are, and I'd like to know, and if we can get accurate data, if what they employ actually helps anything out, or does it just create a sense of fear and maybe even distrust between student and staff. And that is the last thing you want to have, where the kids cannot even trust you. No matter what they do wrong, there are plenty of ways to learn that, hey, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have pulled Sally's pigtails. There are better ways to learn that lesson than to be beaten. Or if you had a fight, you got into an altercation with Timmy out on recess, and the principal's answer was well, if you want to fight so bad, why don't you bend over and I'll spank you with this paddle as hard as I can. What is the lesson to be learned? Not to fight? There are better ways to learn that. And I think that came from a time when there just wasn't much patience. There wasn't much of an emphasis on learning more about the minds of the students, the minds of children. And that's where child psychology kind of came in to round out the edges. Do they fix everything? Absolutely not. There are some issues that I think deep psychology may have caused. But I think what they fixed is way more important than the extra challenges they brought in. One of the most simple ones is what I mentioned a few videos ago about placing kids all throughout elementary school in these work pods. That doesn't grow independence, doesn't grow individuality at all. Nothing of the sort. There's a little sign over here. I'm going to check this out. Native Trees of Indiana River Walk. Okay, so we are... I'd forgotten there was a name for this. It's not just a trail, it's a nature excursion, you might say. Don't really notice the trees that much, because I'm kind of focused on the trail itself. I'm gonna kind of go around here. This is the backside of one of their education centers. I actually don't remember exactly where this trail goes. I think, oh, look here. Little tiny turtle. Probably not the best place for him. I know they don't like to be jostled either, so I'm gonna leave them alone. If I remember right, this goes into like residential areas. The dorms, some of the bigger educational buildings. There's a squirrel up there making a lot of noise. Distracted. During the summer, there are a few different smaller festivals that go on, like one-day events. I think this weekend is the Cherry Blossom Festival, or it may have been last week. I don't remember. That one celebrates Japanese culture, everything you can imagine, from traditional things such as Japanese dance, taiko drumming, to the modern fare, the junk that comes by way of anime and manga and memes. And they'll also do, I think Korean Fest is here in September. That was a little better. It's a little more toned down. It's not as vibrant. Then again, with the advent of K-pop entering Western culture, I have a feeling I know what I'm going to see. References to BTS and the other industry giants straight out of the factories. But yeah, this little spot is very beautiful. It's you can see the mastodon there. I'll take a pause there. There's a few places to sit, a few places to kind of take a load off. If you ride bikes, it's a good place to be too. There's the old emblem for the school. You know, think about school itself. There was a time back in high school. I think it was either my junior year or early on in my senior year. There was a class I'd taken called Careers. And the idea was it would give me an idea of what's out there, what to kind of think about and consider as I pursue life out of high school. And one of the things I had to do was describe what sort of job I would want to shadow, what sort of career I might want to explore while I'm taking this class. That way I can go do it for a while, write up a report, and present it to the teacher in the class. Well, in typical fashion, my schoolmates chose simple jobs like, being a mechanic. Okay, that's easy. Go find a body shop and go shadow them for a while. Veterinarian. Okay, well, you shadow a veterinarian for a while. But me, because I was a kid who had unique ideas as to what I wanted to do with my life, I told the teacher, I want to be a clinical pathologist. Yep. Because as I grew up, I discovered when I was a teenager that I liked, or I was interested in like disease, in the way something that tiny could infect the body and destroy it over an appropriate amount of time. Some diseases last a long time, some are very quick. I found it fascinating. And it's wrapped around the idea of death. And for a teenage boy who was slightly emo, just slightly, I thought that was also very interesting and fascinating in a way. So disease and death and the human condition, human drama. I thought pathology would be a great way to kind of hone in that interest and do well for society as a whole. But the problem with that is, if you shadow a pathologist, something that you're going to get into is autopsies. You might go to the viewing area and watch them do their thing. That's a big part of this. You cannot progress, the human experience and learning more about disease and how it ravages the body if you don't witness that ravaging, the destruction of cancer on the lungs, or Heart disease. What does it do to the heart? Cirrhosis of the liver. These people, they put their sensitivities aside and they get in there and they figure things out. And I found that fascinating too. And I was told, no, can't do that. It's too gross. And I do not remember what I did instead. I don't think I did anything. I think I may have just abandoned it. Just out of principle. Was it really their right to tell me what I should be getting into and what not? Being a doctor is a very important job. And if there's someone out there who's interested in medicine, interested in the human element, the experience of living, walking around in these bodies we have, who are they to destroy that desire? Is that really what school is about? Oh, Sally, you want to be a veterinarian? Oh, that's so sweet and cute. Yeah, let's take you down to the vet, have you watch what they do. And you can see the kitties and the puppies. That's perfectly fine. Oh, you want to work on cars? That's a very important job. We all drive cars. Yeah, go down to the body shop. Hang out there for a while. Talk with Jimbo. Get your hands greasy. Go for it. Oh, you're ambitious. You want to be a doctor. Well, it might be a bit too much for you. We can't have you doing that. We can't set that up for you. We can't set you up with a moment to simply speak with someone in the field and talk about the rigors and the difficulties and how long it takes to actually do that. Nope. In a strange way, they certainly did not have patience with me. They seemed to know exactly what I should be doing without telling me what that was. They seemed to know what would not work for me, which was not correct. And took that entire class I took, careers class, and turned it into nothing. And it got me thinking about school in general. Is school really just a way to get you into the factory? Pushing buttons, pulling levers. Maybe it was. Maybe it was for the boys. I worked with plenty of women in the factory I worked at. Great workers. But I was a guy. And in fact, that's kind of my impression when I got into education. Some of the earliest things I heard from folks were, oh, you're going to be so good because you're a guy. The kids really need more male influence and more male guidance. How about just not being a fool? How about treating kids with dignity and basic respect? Let's start there. How about that? Let's not treat them as statistics. Let's not treat them as a means to an end. Oh, the testing that they do. Oh, it's not about those kids. It's about us teachers. Because when they do well, we do well. And our jobs hang on that premise, unfortunately. It's interesting how patience and taking time to understand things, to make sense of stuff, plays into so much in our life. I've had moments in my early days in education where my patience was tested. Unfortunately, that was the case. No harm was done, but when I have to raise my voice, I feel terrible. That's not me. I'm not the sort of adult who must scream down the hallway at a kid who is, maybe they're skipping down the hall and they should be walking. Because that's the policy, you don't run in the hallway. But is it really helpful for me to spot a kid that far down the hallway, yell at them to stop running or stop skipping? Is that really something I should be doing? I don't think so. I'm gonna take a seat here. Enjoy the scenery. But I work with folks who do that. That's their MO. They make it their mission to yell and to put themselves out there and to make sure that these kids know exactly how they feel about stuff. And these are just, minor transgressions. If you're a kid, you got out of gym and you're hyped up and you get up the stairs and you turn around the corner, go down to your classroom and you're kind of still moving around, you're being a kid. That's it. And I can say, hey, let's tone it down a bit. Let's take some time to cool off a bit. Gym's over, let's get back to business. That's more my style. I'd rather talk with a student rather than yell at them. To me, yelling at a student is one of those problems of patience. If I see a kid running down the hallway, I'm not going to yell at them. I'd rather reach their point, pull them aside and say, hey, I saw you were being a bit too active down the hallway. Let's tone it down, all right? Thanks, bud. That's it. The fifth graders this season, they knew me as that sort of type. They knew I was the sort of, if you remember, here's a weird connection here, but if you remember the show Full House, 90s, had the three guys living together, kids involved. It was a unique family situation. Danny Tanner, played by Bob Saget, he was the dad who would, pull you aside and have that little talk with you that changes the course of the episode, and then everything turns out great afterwards. That's kind of my style. It's not really natural for me to yell and be boisterous with my voice. It's just not really me. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Those are those moments when I lost control, when I lost management of my patience. And I will say, it doesn't really matter what the problem is. Not really. If we're not talking life and death, we're just talking about kids being kids, me losing my patience, that's a me problem. I need to admit that. If I'm going to be the best I can be at this job, I've got to be able to understand when I'm going too far. That's understanding patience. Free socks. I'm just kind of looking around. I've never actually been under this part of the bridge before. Usually I find weird things. Ugh. Okay, look at that. I spared you an image of what I saw over there. But patience is one of those things that it's hard to quantify, but you know when you have it and you know when you don't have it. And there were times in my past when I didn't have patience. And I got heated and I yelled when I shouldn't have. And I've always felt bad. Always. Every single time I do that, even if I'm right, even if what I noticed the kid do, even if my point was spot on, the mere act of raising my voice, it just killed me. And I hate it. Because I care about these kids. I do. I want them to be happy. I want them to be secure and safe. And not have to worry about the adults in the building. That should be their guarantee. when they reach that school, and they leave the bus, they leave the car, they walk in the building, the first thing they should be able to do is trust every adult they come across. And I don't like compromising that. So I work very hard to not do that. I've learned a lot over these years. One thing is the patience. And taking time to think. Not just react, but think. Take a few seconds. Maybe breathe. And by the way, it's hard to breathe right now because they have these trees around here. Smell like rotting animals and the stench of death. And I don't know why people like those trees. The beauty of them does not outweigh the stench. So thankfully I'm kind of getting out of here. By the way, there was more to this path than I showed, but given the time on this video already, I'm kind of getting my way back. I'm gonna see if maybe I can go the other way for a while, show you the other direction I could have gone. So just as there are, very impatient people out and about in public in waiting rooms right now who demand satisfaction, who demand that they are attended to right away, there are people in schools who are struggling with, certain kids who are a challenge, who are a pain in the backside, you might say. And there's a chance they're going to lose control. This seems to be just the element of living. How do you manage your emotions in different situations you find yourself in? I know it's hard. Like I started out with, I'm going to be a very opinionated and pointed and in some cases harsh in my delivery of things. But I think I've gotten the raising of my voice down pretty well. I think I've avoided that pitfall. And it took experience. It took a little more thinking. This area I'm going back to, which I was at earlier, this is kind of a crossroads here. The way I went to the school. The other way will take us to Anthony Boulevard, which is a north-south road that goes all the way through the town. It's a main drive, but not like Coliseum Boulevard, which is an absolute mess. Anthony's pretty nice. In fact, if you saw the video of me going all the way out south to the safety village, you saw the end of Anthony. Because after that, it just empties out into countryside. But this is North Anthony that we'll be seeing here in a bit. These little birds kind of ignoring me. Talking about something. It's like it doesn't occur to them they could just fly away right now. This one's going to fly away here in a second, I think. As it should. Alright. I love animals. I'm not a fanatic. There's certain animals I'm really fond of. But when I have a chance to not disturb them, I'm not going to disturb them. Walk slowly. Follow them around, see what they do. It's interesting. Yeah, going this way takes us southbound on Anthony. I could literally follow this road all the way back to my old home. It would take me probably a good 5 or 6 hours to do that. because I have done city-long walks before. Those are fun. Usually every summer, I go out to where the safety village is, and I walk back home. And with one pause, where I sit for a while, it takes about 4 hours. But from here to where I was that one video, that's going to take a little longer because it's a straight shot, not a little bit of bend. Because to get from back there or out south to where I live, it's a little bit of a curve. And I don't have to deal with as much, so it would shorten my ride or my walk. Here's that water area, the dam, St. Joe Dam. This is the St. Joe River. St. Joe is one of 3 rivers we have in Fort Wayne. The Maumee, the St. Mary's, you saw the St. Mary's, and now the St. Joe. I think what I'll do is just kind of follow this a little further and end out my video here. I've been trying to figure out, how the YouTube algorithm works. I'm not looking to make money off of these videos. I'm just putting things out there to kind of purge myself of what I'm thinking about and maybe connect with some of you who have experienced similar things. And I've been watching the views, and they're creeping up a little bit here and there. No comments yet, no emails, nothing like that. That's fine. But it's interesting how certain videos get way more views than others. I still have a video that I think has 1 view. And other ones that have, at this early point, 12, 13, 14, something like that. I'm curious how that works. Because, these people out there who make their livings doing videos and such, which is fascinating to me how that works. But, they get millions of views. They drop something, and by the end of the day, it has like 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 views. It's an interesting thing for me. They're all younger people, of course. I'm still a relatively old guy. But I think the end goal for me, because working where I'm working is not my end game. It just isn't. At some point I'm going to be doing something a little more professional. Still be working with kids, not in the same capacity. So what I'm talking about now kind of exists within a particular bubble that it's going to burst at some point where I'm going to run out of things to talk about as it pertains to my personal experience, but the topics should always be there. And like today, I was inspired by a chance situation at a blood work lab. What I originally wanted to talk about was something entirely different, but I felt this was a good kind of connector. Patience as a way of self-moderation, a kind of a reminder to keep your head on straight, think before you speak, and try to not do something that you're going to regret. So before I end this video, I'll kind of explain what's here on the horizon. As I would cross St. Joe Road here, there's a couple different coffee shops to the right, the Firefly and the Old Crown Coffee House or whatever. On the left, there's a music store I really enjoy called Wooden Nickel. I go in there looking for used CDs. I'm a big CD guy. I have a bunch of them at home. I have a very versatile taste in music. So I like to scrounge through like discount bins and used stacks and things like that to find some hidden gems, things that others have overlooked. And if I keep going, there's a really cool, I don't know how to describe it, like a multicultural grocery store. Really cool things in there. And of course another Dairy Queen, which I'm tempted to go to, but I haven't eaten anything all day because of the blood draw, and I don't want to fill my body with junk right now. So I think I'm gonna head back home, get something to eat there. But thanks for joining me today. I will talk to you soon. Enjoy your time off and be patient with yourself. Bye-bye.